Hello everyone, excited to be bringing you the first pattern we have here, and it's the attacking pattern number 1. So this pattern occurs actually in the Grand Prix or the Grand Prix very frequently, and it is this precise piece configuration by white. And of course you have to face a fianchetto, of course if the pawn is on g7, doesn't make sense. And I put the rook on f8, but it's not necessary that the rook be here. The rook could be on any other square, and of course the king needs to be castled kingside, not queenside, of course. But in the Grand Prix that would be very weird anyway. So the point is to have this attacking formation. So we'll see why this needs to be the case. And it's important to remember that it's only this attacking formation. If you don't have the knight, it's not this pattern. If you don't have the bishop, it's not this pattern. But if you don't have the bishop here, you immediately mate. So yeah, this is the point actually. So let's move on to the thing we have to remember, and that is the most important and crucial aspect of this pattern is the mate on h7. So you have to think, how do I take on g7 and play queen h7 advantageously, because sometimes queen h7 isn't mate because the king has this escape square. But in general, in the Grand Prix, you have the rook bearing down on this open file, so the king can't actually escape to f6. Okay, so how does the pattern play out? Usually you'll see, of course, this is what we just talked about, and this is the way the pattern plays out. So let's check some sample games. So the first sample game here we have was played by Jensen against Ernst. So we have the Grand Prix attack against the Sicilian defense. This is the characteristic pawn formation that defines the Grand Prix attack. And here we have white playing this maneuver, which we'll see actually in the second pattern. This is the second pattern we'll see, second attacking pattern, and this is a way to get the queen to the king side, where it will help attack the black king, while black is concerned with queen side expansion to dominate that sector of the board. But in the meantime, they'll face a big aggressive effort on the king side. Now note that f5 here is a pawn sacrifice, but this is very common in the Grand Prix. The point is to open up for the bishop. You don't really care about the pawn, because then black's pawn structure will be very, very bad. So we get to see this pattern unfold. a4, black continues with their queen side strategy. Knight f4, knight e2 wasn't so innocent after all. Knight f4 brings in the reinforcements. And note now, if g takes f5, e takes f5, queen takes f5. Now this is a terrible pawn to take, because after bishop takes g7, you can't capture because of knight check, and you pick up the queen. So white just wins a piece, and they have this, and this is coming. This is all obviously completely losing. So instead, black played queen e8, trying, I guess, to defend a bit here, but yeah, I mean, for lack of better moves. So white took here, and now came knight d5. Already, white could have won with knight fe6. Knight d5 is fine, but knight fe6 is a nice sacrifice that immediately wins. And actually, this is a pattern we'll see much later in similar structures. So the point here is that after f takes, you take the bishop, and now the king is here. You want to checkmate, but the knight is preventing you, so you just sacrifice, and this is an exchange sacrifice we'll also see. So rook takes f6, queen h7 check, this leads to mate. And if e takes f6, so let's go back here. So after king takes g7, if e takes f6, queen h7 is mate. And if we go back again, if king takes f6, we have this cute mate. The knight gives itself up, because if the king returns, this is mate as we have seen. And now, slowly, check, king e5, check. Okay, if the king comes here, knight e6 is mate, but there's no way to stop that actually. And this is exactly what occurs. Okay, but white didn't find knight fe6, or decided to play knight d5. Trying to remove the guard here, so that after takes, this is also mate. And note that king f6, so let me show you this. So note that king f6 can't be played because of rook f1. So knight e d7 was played, trying to, after takes, to take back with a knight, which is what happened. But now the familiar sacrifice, and bishop g7 seals off everything. So the point here is that this, if this occurs, of course, we have this mate. and if you take here, there's this mate. So after bishop takes, you can't take this because of this mate, and you can't take here because of this mate. So e takes would be losing as well. So after bishop takes though, we have this, and again we see that this familiar formation stays true till the end, until white sacrifices the bishop to deliver the crushing blow. Either on h7 or h8 is mate, and you can't prevent that. So very nice game here. Alright, let's take a look at sample game number 2. So we'll go through the opening moves very quickly. We get the Grand Prix. A pawn sacrifice very early on, but remember that this pawn sacrifice is quite fine and dandy. And now we get to see this formation. Note here that Queen c7 was very bad actually. Queen c7 basically is losing. You have to try to defend with h5, and at least now white doesn't get this. But Queen c7, this is just too much. You're playing on the king side, like especially here, you're just taking this bishop, and white doesn't care. Of course, they just take here and they want to checkmate you. So king takes, and now check, and the king went up. And actually it might look like the king might be able to escape somehow. Maybe if this knight moves, they escape like this. But that's not the case, because this is basically a forced mate. Actually, there was a way to force a mate with e5 check, and this occurred a move later, so now you'll see what I mean. So e5 check, the point is that if king takes, which is what occurred, obviously, you have no other move. Well, you do have here, but then, what's the easiest? This is mate immediately, yeah. So if king takes, you have this check, which is what occurred in the game, and after king f6, knight h7 is mate. So that's why a move earlier you could have inserted e5 check, and the point is that after king takes, rook check, and the king retreats, now you have queen h6 as well. And this is a threat, this is a threat, there's no way to cover, you just take, so this is actually mating by force. But queen h6 is of course completely winning as well. Alright, so that was a very nice game. So now it's time for our test. So let's check out the test. So we'll go through the opening quickly again. Very normal. We've all seen this before. The bishop here, adding pressure, and this maneuver, and this pawn sacrifice, and now the Grand Prix. Now the question is, should white have played knight g5 here? And if not, what's the refutation? So pause the video and try to figure out the answer to this test. Alright, so the answer, let's check out the full game. So we have knight g5 here, and actually this isn't quite good because of queen check. So the king moves, and knight f5 forking here, so you have to give up the exchange, and here this position. And note, why is the queen check so good? Because if bishop takes, you have queen takes g7 and there's no mate here. So queen d4 check is a brilliant move here. Well, it's a very good move. It's not brilliant in the because it's not so difficult to find, but it's a very good move. And the point here is that you can swing your queen back for defense, and you have this knight f5 idea, and all of this is working for black. So instead white played rook d1, and here they're just losing, but they played on and eventually were able to win. They just won the queen here, and we go through to this position. Actually yeah, black won here, but I inserted this because I did the PGN by hand and I just inserted it incorrectly. Okay, so actually black won here, guys. I'll fix the PGN for you guys who check out the Lichess study. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you learned this pattern pretty well, and I hope you can use it in your own games. So with that, thank you guys, and take care.